So it's that time of year again here at the Herbothecary, emptying out thousands of pots of that has gone over. We've got some tomatoes that we started from offshoots, and well, I might have to bring them inside. And we've been hand pollinating all the flowers, well rather toothbrush pollinating all the flowers. Lots of stuff that's dying over that we probably won't get to use. We've had a steady harvest. You'll have to excuse the sounds. I don't normally do it like this, but I received some constructive criticism from a family member, and he said, well, he works in film, and he said I should talk to you guys more rather than just talk over the stuff that I've done. So we've had loads of chilies, and our tomatoes have been coming in steady. We actually haven't bought a tomato this year, or any salad, or any carrots, or any onions, but they are all coming to an end now, not all ripening. And so what we've been doing is, as we've been picking, we've been preserving. We did the chilies in brine. I showed you that in the last video. We preserved the whole baby tomatoes. Today we're going to be turning those hazelnuts that we foraged into nut butter, and we're going to be making and preserving some of our larger tomatoes into tomato sauce so that we can use that in pasta and pizzas and things over the winter. And we'll be doing the water bath method again of canning them. So gonna have a walk around, I'll show you what we've got to harvest today, and then back in the kitchen we'll make up some sauce. Alright, bye! So we really have had the strangest season here in the Herbothecary garden. We had pumpkins that grew huge but had no flowers. Peas, although they grew huge, we probably got about 3 dozen off each plant. Randomly, my 3-year-old grapevine has 3 bunches of grapes on it, and they've gone purple, where I thought that was green. The peas, we've left them in situ. We've also got 1 random sweet corn and all the babies next to it, and they're all planted at the same time. But these peas we're letting dry out so that we can seed save from them. The best luck we've had is with these Nantes carrots. This is actually our 5th sowing, and those ones are a good few inches long. Also, my olive tree, which was a cutting taken 4 years ago, has little baby olives on it. My fig tree went dormant for 3 years, and then now we have loads of these little figs, but they started right in the beginning of the season, so at the end of April, beginning of May, and they're just not getting any bigger or ripening. My passion flower that I thought I'd completely murdered because I listened to Monty Don and cut it right back, suddenly took over in June, and now we have all of these tiny little passion fruits. I don't know if these ones are supposed to ripen and go purple. We used to have them in South Africa, but I'm pretty sure we don't have enough summer left for them to ripen properly. But the flowers are beautiful, so I'll let it do its thing anyway. I also propagated some of the runners off my main strawberry plant, and they've literally just come into flower in the last couple of weeks, so maybe we're going to get a late harvest of strawberries, who knows. These are the other carrots. These were only started 4 weeks ago, and we've been harvesting from these. This is the heated bed above the composter, and we have been, those potatoes need harvesting. We have been picking these tiny little baby carrots. I do love my dahlia. These tiny little baby carrots in here. The kids basically come and chomp these as and when they need a snack. And they're so cute and tiny. Because the bed isn't very deep, we chose a variety that grows like a globe rather than long like a carrot. Let's see, we've got some tiny little ones, and I think what I'm actually going to do is pull a load of these up and preserve them as well, and then I can start my winter crops in these beds. I haven't given up. We've even got these beans that really need planting. But the star of the show are my tomatoes. These are ones that I showed way back when, and I was trying this new trellising idea. Some of them are blushing, and then we've got some that are almost ready. But we have been harvesting from these, my black tomatoes, we have been harvesting from these ever since the beginning of June. As I said, we haven't bought a tomato. We've still got loads on there. Who knows if they'll ripen, but I'll bring them back. Oh, and this is my feeble attempt at an heirloom cucumber. I think I got 4 in total before it died back. It seems with preserving, the most important thing is to have everything you need ready. So we have our bowl of the larger tomatoes. They've gone a bit soft, they're a bit bruised. So we'll make them into sauce and they'll be absolutely fine. They won't last in the fridge. Our hot pan for blanching, our cold water for stopping the cooking afterwards. We also have our pan at the back that we'll be cooking our sauce in, a bowl for all our bits, an extra bowl, and then for our utensils, we have a knife so we can cut those cool bits out. We have our jar grabby things, which are ingenious, and we have our other grabby things for getting the jars out of the hot water in the first place. And then we have our jars in our large pan that we'll be using for the canning process. Now remember, you want to start them off in cold water and bring them up to a simmer. You don't want to boil them at this stage, but start them in cold water, otherwise the glass could crack, and then you're just going to have a big pan of cracked glass and one less jar. So with our tomatoes, we're going to start with the blanching so we can remove those peels. So into my pan of rolling boiling water, and apparently I didn't have everything because I forgot my little sieve, but I'm just going to chuck those tomatoes in. I am putting the big ones in first, as they'll need around 30 seconds, and then I'll pop the smaller ones in after about 10 seconds, as they only need 15 to 20 seconds. And what you're looking for is you don't want them to cook. You just want these skins to start to crack so they're easier to peel. So once those skins are cracked, I've just asked Alexa to set a timer for me. I'm then going to pull them out and submerge them into the ice water. And we didn't have any ice, so I just popped the entire jar into the freezer for about 20 minutes for that water to get icy, as we do want it to immediately stop the cooking process. These larger ones seem to be taking a few more seconds rather to pop. So I'm going to get on with peeling these. But as you can see, once they crack, that peel really does come off so easily. Now, if you don't mind the peel in there, or you're going to grind them, then by all means you can leave it on. However, I really don't like the texture, and we won't be throwing away any of these extra bits unless they're damaged or there's a little bit of rot on one side. So we will actually be dehydrating those and making a tomato powder that we can add to other meals. So all I'm doing now is just chopping them in half and cutting out those cores. I don't chop them up any finer. You can, roughly chop them if you want, but we do actually like some chunk in our sauces, and when I cook them down in their final process, they normally break down a lot more as well, so I don't find the need to do that at this point. But I'm just, as I said, just coring these, getting those bits out. I do leave the seeds in because we quite enjoy the seeds. And they're just going straight into my cooking pot, where I'm going to simmer them down until they're slightly softer, give them a little mush before getting ready to season. Now, you don't need to season at this point if you don't want to, but who am I kidding? I'm always going to use the same herbs, and I'm going to use a lot of them, so I do actually season mine at this point. So I've cut them down pretty finely. I mean, there's still big chunks the way we like it. So I'm just going to pop the lid on and let that simmer down for a little while. And in the freezer, we had the herb cubes that we made a couple of weeks ago. We've been going around and harvesting bits of herbs and stuff and popping them in ice cubes, and as you saw in the previous video, drying them up. So I'm going to use pop the excess ones in these wonderful reusable freezer bags, and then I'm going to pop a couple into my tomato sauce as well. While I was looking for the tomatoes in the fridge, I realized that we still have some fruit that hasn't been eaten and probably won't make it until we finally get to eat it. So I decided I'd make a fruit salad. So to 2 parts water, I add 1 part of brown sugar, and I'm going to make a light syrup with that. So just pop that on the heat for the sugar to all melt while I prepare the fruit. We have some grapes that are getting a bit squishy. We do have these cherries, but I won't use them all because my girls like them. And we have 1 pear that's gone a bit soft. So just while that's melting, and my water isn't quite hot enough yet, I do want it to be ready once I jar everything up. I'm just going to halve some of these grapes. Again, need a fresh knife. So I'm going to halve some of the grapes. I'll do the same with the cherries and remove that pip, because remember, you should never ever eat cherry pips. You could, of course, blanch the pears like we did with the tomatoes and remove the skin, but I find it just as easy to cut the top off and just using my potato peeler, just give them a good peel. As long as they're not too soft, I do find this so much easier and quicker. I totally cut off the bottom as it was mushy, cut it in half, and just running my knife down, remove the stem that runs all the way down the middle of the pear. But before I cut the pear, to avoid it going brown prematurely, it's just time to pull out our nice hot jars. I'm just starting with the one for now, as I don't know if I have enough fruit to fill 2, but it's not looking likely. So I'm just going to alternate the cherries and the grapes. I cut the end bits or the smaller parts of the pear into little bits, but I am going to use those top bits that are larger to try and help suspend everything down. So, it looks like I need a few more grapes. I would like to keep it as full as possible. I may as well use these grapes. I'll give the leftovers to the kitties, and then I'm just going to shove in those bigger bits and use them to keep everything down, and then just top that off with our syrup. I've already taken the clean lids and seals out of the warm water I had them soaking in. And just before I do, I'm going to grab my chopstick and just run it down the side to make sure there are no excess air bubbles in there. And once there aren't, we'll just, there's a little bit more space, so we'll pop that, a little bit more syrup in, and then on with our lid and our seal. Now again, we're only doing these finger tight. The only purpose of the outside seal is to hold it in place, so it isn't very tight. I'm just going to pop that on the side, and then we will grab another jar. I did kind of hope to get more than one of the fruit cocktails, but we don't always get what we want. So I'm going to take those other jars out for now. I will actually be doing some applesauce and some apple cider vinegar and stuff later. So those jars will get used and that water will still be hot. But now for our tomato sauce, that is simmered nicely. It's still perfectly chunky the way I like it. So now we will grab another jar. Now, even though the tomatoes are acidic, we do want to add some acid to it to ensure that it stays shelf stable. So I'm using 1 large tablespoon of, you want store-bought lemon juice or citric acid, but store-bought lemon juice as it ensures the acidity. And I'm just going to scoop this in. I do like to scoop out all of the tomato first of all, just in case I've got too much for the jar, because I don't want that much of the juice, or I don't want to use more juice than the actual tomato. We'll then top it up with that extra juice when we cook it down to make the final meal in December or January, or whenever we get round to it. That sauce will thicken up during the cooking process. And just want to give our rim a good wipe to make sure that nothing excess got on there, to ensure a proper seal. pop our lid on, finger tight again, and we are just going to pop our jars into that water bath canner. But before I forget, I do put the rack underneath as it stops the jars from shaking around or air bubbles getting caught underneath, which can cause them to break. Now we are at sea level here, like literally the sea is down the road, so we are just going to leave that in my case for 30 minutes, but please do check the respective time for whatever your sea level is. I pop the lid on to keep it boiling. It does help keep the heat in. And then after 30 minutes, I actually left it 35 because I got distracted playing with the kitties. I am just going to take these out and pop them on the side. I normally hear the pop of that lid within around 15-20 minutes. However, if they don't seal straight away, you can leave them overnight, and then when you take the rim off, if that lid is firmly stuck, then they should be good. I've never had any issues with them. So when you're certain it is well sealed, and when you take that rim off, the lid doesn't pop down anymore and it doesn't come off, don't forget to label and date. I normally say refrigerate, but I just pop these on a shelf in a cool pantry where the temperature doesn't fluctuate too much. And I've used these as much as 6 months later and they've still been absolutely fine. But you have to make sure that you get the acidity right or they're not shelf stable. If that seal does pop at any point though, I would be cautious about using it because obviously bacteria can go in and your food can go rancid. But we are, well, up until March this year, we were still using ones from August last year and they were absolutely perfect. In fact, they tasted better than when we did them.